Yeah, look, I think this is an important question. Let me reiterate. Growing up, I learned a lot about financial responsibility
Hmm.
within my family. And some of that, as you mentioned, is my mom who worked in finance. And this is 1980s. She's still relatively new to the US, working in a male dominated industry. So she's tough as nails. And she was the person balancing the checkbook. And she was the first person to say to me after I was starting to collect a paycheck in the 90s, working at the supermarket in high school, that you should invest in a mutual fund. That had not come to my mind, but she was the one who planted that seed. Like, invest in the market. And she's also the person who helped me fill out or effectively filled out my financial aid form when I was applying to college. You know, my parents never told me you can't go to that school because it's too expensive. They
Mm.
said, we'll borrow. You'll pay it back in the future. And I think just that confidence to know that you could use debt to invest in yourself over the long term was something that I now realize required some basic financial literacy that has influenced my life. So I think with the Latino community, you could have an upbringing like mine where you develop a sense of financial literacy and you develop a sense of it's okay to take risk and you start investing for the long term, and investments can compound, and then you can really build wealth. There's a risk that in the Latino community, your family comes from countries where there was not a lot of trust in government,
Right.
where there was not access to the capital markets. It was harder to invest in stocks and bonds. Your parents and your family could come from a country where there's just not trust in the institutions. There's also the fact that maybe your family comes from countries where interest rates were always high because
Right.
inflation was high, or because the country was trying to attract capital from external sources. And by keeping interest rates high, it creates a bias, which is that, and we see this, by the way, when we work with a lot of our Latin American clients, is that it is very common for the individual investor in Latin America to own a lot of fixed income, a lot of bonds. That's what they view as safe. They collect a coupon and they leave it at that. Now, if you're that first generation or second generation Latino in the US, and that is what you have grown up around, or if that's what your parents and your grandparents' experience was, the risk is that you don't take risk
Right.
as somebody who lives in this country and has access to a myriad of investment opportunities where technology is now making it easier to use small increments, to start to save, to start to compound wealth. That's the thing that worries me, is that you have that your family should influence a lot of great things in your life. I've talked
Right.
about, humility and the importance of hard work and education, but hopefully one thing they don't influence is the risk taking, because if it's too conservative, then it could impact your ability to save for retirement, to save for that college education, either for yourself or for your children. Again, like the interesting thing is now, if you read the news can scare you out of doing anything. But if you look at the facts, the ability to open an account, to start with small increments, to start investing in the markets. And the markets is an umbrella term for a lot of different asset classes and sectors and industries. But the amount of choice you have living in the US to invest, I don't think people realize it until they start to go outside the US and realize that this is now, we're sort of at a period in time where the access to markets is being democratized more and
Mhm.
more. So I think that would be my message to the Latino growing up in this country, which is, you know, your family might influence a lot of great things in your life, but hopefully they're not influencing your desire to be too conservative.
Right.
And even myself, I don't think I've taken enough risk in my investments over time, but I know I haven't been too conservative either.